Hi, Writers. Thank you so much for joining me. Cruz here. In this video, we are going to be looking at an Accuplacer Writeplacer English as a Second Language sample essay. This is the final video of this particular series, so please feel free, Writers, or perhaps future subscribers, to take a look at the other videos connected with the Accuplacer Writeplacer ESL rather sample essays. This is an essay which scored a 6 out of 6, and we're going to be looking at this 5-paragraph essay examining the word use, sentence use, grammar, organization, and development. If this is a video which interests you, please keep apparently I can't speak today. Please keep playing the video. But if it's not, take a look. There may be something else in the video series or in the videos that I have on poetry or the ACT that you may be interested in. If you are a English as a second language speaker and are interested in videos on the IELTS, those videos are forthcoming next week. So I'm super excited about those videos because you will see a native English speaker struggle in the testing environment of the IELTS. With that said, Writers, thank you again for joining me. Let's take a look at paragraph 1. And as we go through, again, we'll be looking at word use, sentence use, grammar, organization, and development. And as I zoom in here, also keep in mind, Writers, that we're going to be looking at, some of the positives, the highlights of these particular paragraphs, but also some opportunities to improve the essay as well. Even though the student scored a 6 out of 6, there's always room for improvement. And on the general Accuplacer Writeplacer, those essays are the possible or the perfect score you could score would be an 8. So there's still a 2-point difference between the English as a second language Accuplacer Writeplacer versus just the Accuplacer Writeplacer. So I did want to let you know that, Writers. Okay, with that said, let's go ahead and look at paragraph 1. Here we go. There are lots of things that we can do with a large sum of money in this world. We can spend them for ourselves or spend them for others. Since my parents are busy working to make a living for their 4 children and I am interested in volunteering, I would spend that large amount of money for my family and volunteering. Okay, so some positives that I immediately see. Number 1, I know what the topic is. And I also know how the student is planning on using that large sum of money. They're using it for their family and also for volunteering. In addition, we learned some information about the writer. We learned that they have hardworking parents, and we learned that this writer is one of 4 children. With that said, if I had to do some more harsh critiquing, I would take a look at um, beginning an essay with words like or phrases such as there is and there are. Oftentimes, you do not need those 2 words. Instead, you can move the sentence around to say something like, we can do a lot of things with a large sum of money in this world. Or, better yet, in this world, we can do a lot with a large sum of money. We can spend them or the money for ourselves, or we can spend the money on others. So notice how, again, oftentimes students do not need there is or there are in their writing. Please watch out for that, Writers. With that said, we see some preposition issues. Obviously, it is not for ourselves or for others. We would say we can spend the money on ourselves or on others. In addition, them is plural and this large sum is singular. So just keep that in mind as well. With that said, definitely clear. We have the organization and development, and at no point did I sort of struggle as far as what I was reading. So that's also a positive because again, there are no hiccups disrupting my ability to read the paragraph. Moving on to paragraph 2. First, I would use some of money for my family to ease my parents' burden by paying tuitions and loans and to show my thanks for them by making family trip. Since my family has 4 children who are all enrolling certain kinds of schools, it is hard to paying all educational fees while they need other money for the necessities in daily lives. Okay, we definitely have some missing words here. But again, and I noticed that it was happening. However, again, right writers, notice for flow's sake, I still really didn't there were no uncomfortable pauses or hiccups as I was reading. However, if you did notice, you were like, wait a second, there's some words missing and some things that need to be added. But again, it did not take away from the essence, the conveying of the ideas, the essence of the essay. And so, again, even as an English language learner, an English as a second language speaker, you are still able to convey your ideas in a clear way, in a clear manner, even if it's imperfect. And that's great and that's okay. So I really appreciate that again about Accuplacer Writeplacer because again, you can see some issues, yet the essay still scored a 6 out of 6. Obviously, they're missing some words. In addition, I see a few opportunities maybe to put in commas or break ideas up into smaller pieces. Yet again, the flow was effortless for me, and I love how they talked about it is hard paying for all these educational fees while they need other money for the necessities in daily lives. So, this idea of educational fees, necessities, enrolling, tuition, loans, burden, that's great word use. And that definitely lets the Accuplacer Writeplacer reader know this student has an understanding, a clear understanding or a broad understanding of the English language as far as vocabulary is concerned. And if you look at that paragraph, it actually only contains, just as the other one, 2 sentences. So again, a lot, beautifully constructed to some extent. This they did have a comma splice in paragraph 1, but you're seeing more complex and compound complex writing. Again, to ensure more sentence fluency, it's nice to have a mix of simple with a complex, with a compound complex, and then maybe with a compound, and then throwing in a simple. That just helps your sentence fluency. But other than that, again, the ideas are very clear to the reader. Okay. I definitely see this third paragraph is quite large. It's much bigger than the other two. So I'm just going to shrink it down just a little bit, but just to let you see it. So you can see the length of this paragraph here, and then we'll start from the top and I will zoom in again, right writers, and then we'll sort of take it, and I'll scroll down from there. Moreover, as I am studying as an international student outside my home country, it requires much more money, even twice as much money as usual students spend for their tuitions and living things in my home country, Japan. So it would be quite helpful for my parents to pay tuition and fees for all their 4 children. Also, I would like to use that money for loans of our house. 7 years ago, my parents bought a house in a city which is convenient for children to go to schools and which is comfortable for my entire family to live in. The loan will not be coupled paying or maybe completed paying even my parents become old enough to retire their jobs. It could harden their lives since they have to pay for house loans after finish and retire their jobs. Therefore, I would like to use the money for paying house loans to ease the burden of my parents so that they can seek their interests and hobbies to enrich their lives. To add to that, I'd like to spend that money to show my thanks to my parents and grandparents. They have been busy working to make a living for themselves and for their families. They've even sacrificed their times for their jobs. In other words, they've been trying hard to make our lives better by working extra hours. Because of that, I really like to show my gratitude for them by making family trips where they can relax and enjoy their time. Okay, as you heard, right, writers, I had just a few slight hiccups, but again, notice the how the writer is conveying their ideas. They have, again, elaborate organization and development and are being very specific and giving us, again, extra background knowledge in how they would use the money. And again, that organization and development is there. In addition, they use transition words such as moreover, also, therefore, to add to that, because of that. Those are all excellent transition words, which enrich, since they use the word enrich, which I also loved, and it enriches this paragraph. And so, again, even though I had a little bit of a hiccup, we still see these more advanced writing strategies being used in this particular paragraph. We learn more about the student as well. We learn that they're from Japan. Again, we know they're one of four children. We received more background information on their parents and how, and I think what they were saying, basically was like they have this very large loan, and even when they retire they will still have the loan. And so part of that is, again, to help them pay off that loan so they are able to seek their interests and hobbies, which I absolutely love. And as far as like the voice and the um, empathy factor, you feel that for this student and you want them to succeed because you understand the sacrifices that their parents and grandparents are making to ensure that they are, going to schools. They're obviously paying tuition and fees. So that lets me know they're probably attending private schools where it can be expensive, but they understand that that expense in education is going to pay off in the long run. So you really get a good sense of this student, of their background, and it's very clear within this paragraph, which I love. Again, the sentence use is great. I had a couple of issues, there were a couple little run-ons, but it's just when I was about to run out of breath, they would give me a comma. So I really appreciated that. And again, this paragraph has a nice mix of some compound sentences and simple sentences. And I appreciate that. Again, just a few issues with some commas, etc. But overall, we definitely see an advanced writing style. And part of that is, I think, very much connected to the use of transition words and how they can enhance your writing, right, writers. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to, so that was paragraph 3. We're now moving on to paragraph 4. So again, the focus of the essay that the student said as far as their development was, I want to focus on helping my family, and I also want to focus on volunteering. So let's take a look at this next paragraph. Paragraph 4, right, writers. Next, I would like to spend that money for volunteering by donating and using them to join some volunteer works. I would donate part of them for the organizations like NGO, Red Cross, WHO, and so forth to help people in the third world. Today, every single day, there are hundreds of thousands people dying from disease, starvation, malnutrition, and other reasons caused by poverty and lack of education. I believe that those money I donate would help improve their lives by educating them, constructing sanitary facilities, giving them medical care, and providing them foods. Also, not just donate money, but I'd like to use them to join those works as a volunteer. I want to actually contribute to those works, but it costs lots of money. If I go to abroad to help people such as Sudan, Philippines, Nepal, and Indonesia. So I'd like to use it for my own experiences of volunteering. Okay, so You're right, writers. If you're like, that didn't say Philippines, that said Philippine, and Nepal, which I know they mean Nepal and then Indonesia. I understand that. But again, it doesn't take away from the writing. I understand which countries they're referencing, and that's important. I really like how they, again, gave background information on why they're doing what they're doing. They gave us the background information of people dying from disease, starvation, malnutrition. Again, we're seeing high level vocabulary words, poverty, lack of education, constructing sanitary facilities, this very, very specific information. Even bringing up NGO. NGO is an acronym for non governmental organizations, such as the Red Cross and the WHO, or World Health Organization. But so NGO is not a specific name of an organization. The Red Cross and WHO represent what are considered NGOs. But again, that just merely demonstrates their understanding of these more abstract concepts of volunteer organizations. So they didn't just say, I just want to volunteer and help the third world. They were very specific in the information and gave examples of the organizations they would work for. So I find that to be very interesting. Again, enhancing, enriching their own essay. And notice how, again, they even specify the countries. So these elaborate explanations, especially in paragraph 3 and paragraph 4, add to the richness of this essay. They're specific, they give specific details, and again, very elaborate. In addition, they also include transition words. You've got next, you've got also, today. They use so a couple of times. I wish they would use it as a conjunction rather than just a transition word at the beginning of a sentence. However, it still demonstrates that they have a grasp of, you know, grammar and constructing sentences. So great. Paragraph 4 there. Again, love the detail in both paragraphs 3 and 4. Moving on to the itty bitty, I say itty bitty, the tiny paragraph 5. So keep in mind, right, writers, this is the conclusion. This is one of the last things the reader remembers. So let's take a look. In those ways, I would like to use a large amount of money if I receive it. I would spend it on my family and volunteering. In other words, on private concerns and social matters. So, two-sentence conclusion. And again, they get their point across. They explain that this is how I would use the money, or that this is what I would do with a large sum of money if I were to receive it. And they just sort of wrap it up. I love this idea on private concerns, meaning like privately, meaning in their own family life, their home life, and then on social matters, which is outside of them. And they could have used different words, but really love that use of private concerns and social matters. It actually hints to the cultural background of the student, which I appreciate. So, again, right, writers, you don't have to make this super elaborate conclusion. And I think oftentimes students feel that they have to. Again, it came full circle in that they explained the bulk of the work happened really. And again, let me zoom out here so you can really see, the bulk of the information really came in paragraphs 3 and 4. And when you look at the whole essay, you can see and go, oh, I can see that now, Cruz. Because again, they're just, the first two paragraphs are, oh, I guess decent sized, but really they're just two sentences. And then, the bulk of the work happened in the middle. So they sort of set us up before elaborating and enhancing with, again, rich details, and then just sort of wrapped it up with a couple of sentences at the end. So, right writers, ultimately, I hope this journey through the Accuplacer Writeplacer English as a second language, going through these sample essays allows you to see, you know, it does not have to be perfect to get a perfect score. What needs to be done well or completed well is, again, having rich detail, having transition words, elaborating as much as possible, and avoiding too much repetition. I was a little bit worried because they did use like "I'm one of four children" multiple times, but they did it in separate paragraphs and they did not keep repeating the idea again. So be careful of that. It's good to have some repetition, just not too much. You definitely got an opportunity to see again, um, an expanded vocabulary, a mix of sentence structures, and ultimately it's about writing in a way that conveys your ideas and that does not trip up the reader, meaning they do not trip when they are reading your sentences. And ultimately, right writers, I think that's, part of what this is about as well in these timed essays. Stay on topic too, of course. um, and again, I love the personal piece. You have a little bit of the student's voice, and you definitely walk away from this essay feeling like you know this student, which is something else that again you cannot really put value on. It is simply their voice coming through, and they reveal a part of themselves, and that authenticity shows and shines, and that I think also enhances and enriches the reader's experience. With that said, right writers, I hope you stay tuned for our video in the next series, again where you get to see Cruz struggle under time constraints with the IELTS. All right, take care, right writers. Love you guys. Thank you so much for subscribing and watching this video. All right, see you later. Bye bye.